as General Petraeus has said, make no mistake about it, we have the ability to spy on your households through your appliances. And if we have that ability, we probably will use it.
I mean, this is control freakery. It is the wet dream of the technocrats. People who live locked in a left brain construct.
Last year we discovered that Verizon have a patent for a piece of technology that they're calling the Smart TV Detection Zone. And this product will sit next to your television and be capable of eavesdropping on your conversations whilst you're watching TV. So we'll be able to determine, for example, who's in the room, who's watching TV, what you're talking about, and how you're talking about it. How far does that go? Where does it stop? At what point do we draw the line and say no?
In the summer of 2013, the San Francisco Chronicle revealed that California's electric utilities last year disclosed the energy use records and other personal information of thousands of customers to agencies within the U.S. government.
Why should people care about surveillance?
Because even if you're not doing anything wrong, you're being watched and recorded, and the storage capability of these systems increases every year consistently by orders of magnitude, to where it's getting to the point you don't have to have done anything wrong. You simply have to eventually fall under suspicion from somebody, even by a wrong call, and then they can use the system to go back in time and scrutinize every decision you've ever made, every friend you've ever discussed something with, and attack you on that basis to sort of derive suspicion from an innocent life and paint anyone in the context of a wrongdoer.
Welcome to End Time Talk Radio, where the truth is usually stranger than fiction. The purpose of these shows are not to scare you, but to prepare you, because what you don't know could hurt you. The word says in Hosea 4:6, "My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge." Thank you for joining us. My name is Julie, and here is the host of the show, Barry Meyer.
Today is February 20th, 2014, and we have another great show, and I want to mention a few things. Now, we have been off for a while. We had some problems with Skype, and we got some new equipment, so we're going forward and hoping that this will work out this way. Now, I want to mention a few news stories that you might find interesting. You can always go to barry-julie.blogspot.com and definitely check out almost daily I put these up. Loud booms are heard across and felt across Oklahoma. Earthquake unrest is showing globally. Why is the Obama administration putting government monitors in newsrooms? Well, that's not a question we have to really ask. We know why. Also, Brian Miller last week said that he said those who need more than 10 rounds of magazines are domestic terrorists and gangsters. I wonder who they're trying to protect. The 1%? Let's see here. Also, down in Boulder, privatization opponents plan lawsuit, picket against Colorado Department of Transportation. What's currently going on there is that Turnpike, it's Highway 36 out there from Denver to Boulder, has now officially been given over in a lease over to the Australian company. That's Australian company for 50 years, and all the tow payments go to them. And two other news stories I want to mention is a proposition to split California into 6 states gets the okay to gather signatures. We'll have to watch that. And the last thing, 8 LA officers won't be punished for firing 103 times on 2 unmanned or unarmed women. So go and figure what's happening in our country. It's not good. Okay, tonight on End Time Talk Radio, if you've listened to the Common Sense Show with Dave Hodges. You've heard of Virginia Farber. Now, she's out of Fort Collins, Colorado on smart meters. Now, if you don't know what smart meters, we're definitely going to have her talk about currently what's going on in Fort Collins, and they're trying to implement in Cheyenne. Virginia, welcome to our show tonight.
Thank you, Barry.
Well, I really appreciate, I don't think some people quite understand what's with the smart meters. We'll start off with that, and then we'll kind of go and gain ground on that.
Okay, smart meters, Fort Collins actually refers to these as AMI, Advanced Metering Infrastructure. And what these are utility meters that they've put on our homes and businesses, and they are collect the data from your utilities and send it on to the utilities themselves. But these meters are actually very, very dangerous for us, for our health, and they are a surveillance device on our homes, and they are actually not UL certified, so they're a real safety hazard as well.
Well, I don't know if people really quite know you, maybe in this area here, so maybe kind of give people an understanding why you're into this and why you're fighting against these situations of the smart meters they're trying to put into our lives.
Well, I'm actually in a movie called Take Back Your Power, and you can find this on the internet. If you type in www.takebackyourpower.net, and there's some links on this that you can open up and read, and I suggest you do this. But this movie has gone nationwide, and it just won an achievement award. But there's a lot of experts that have come out on this film that are telling you actually about what is going on with all of our data and how very, very dangerous these meters are. For instance, my son's story, the reason I'm in it is I lost a son in 2008 from glioblastoma brain cancer, and he was involved in a brain cancer cluster on the San Diego State University campus. And there was a cell tower that was outside of this building in this room that many of these people were exposed to, and this cell tower was actually connected to the smart grid, and this is where these smart meters have come from. So this is how I've gotten involved, and so I'm just I am just very, very, very concerned about the health issues of this stuff.
Well, one of the things that we live out in the county now, but when we lived in the city, I remember there was a gentleman that was going to install a smart meter, and I didn't know enough to really quite question. I said something about, hey, does that cause any problems for people? And he says, no, I haven't heard anything. And he was just an installer, and of course he installed it on our house, and right before we left, I remember within the last couple months before we left. Well, actually, it would seem like even after they put that on there, I started having these severe headaches, almost like I can explain it, a severe sour headache. And that's the only way I can explain it. And right before we moved, it was almost becoming like 2 to 3 times a week, where the headache would come on massive, and then my body would just like almost break down. My wife would say, you look almost white, peaked, and I'd just get literally just sick, and then I'd have to call into work and say, I just can't come. Have you heard things like that with people?
This is happening everywhere, and I want people to become very, very acute to what these symptoms are. And my son had a lot of these back in 2007 and 2008, but I knew something wasn't right, but I just didn't know quite what it was. One of his symptoms was he could not remember anything. He just literally could not. He was having troubles with concentration. Fatigue was a huge one. Headaches. This can affect everything in your body. So I suggest everybody look up electrohypersensitivity symptoms. And this is my son's story. Actually got the World Health Organization to reclassify this type of radiation to a Class 2B carcinogen. And so this is compared to DDT and lead, and it's cumulative. So the more of this you get, the more damaging it becomes to your body. But I also wanted to say that the International Agency for Research on Cancer, the IARC, in 2011, they had 29 participating countries, and the United States was the only country that held firm for the Class 2B carcinogen. All of the other countries wanted a Class 2A attachment. So now there is a call to get this changed to a Class 2A, which is, it goes from a possible class 2B to a probable class 2A. So, and this is compared to a lot of chemotherapy drugs and such. So it's very, very dangerous.
Why is our country diving headlong? I mean, whether it's smart meters, GMOs, anything that's hazardous to us, other countries seem like they're a lot smarter, or let's put it this way, leadership is. And with the leadership being like it is, it seems like people just go along. They don't question the government anymore. They don't question the annex and stuff. They just kind of go on. And now we see unprecedented rates of cancer and diabetes and different things like that. And, with smart meters, I know that sometimes people say, well, that's ridiculous and that. But I like what you said when we were talking on the phone. Well, prove it to me. If you think it's ridiculous, then you go out there and prove it to me that I'm wrong.
Right. Well, I do know, for instance, that all cell phone manuals already tell you not to put them to your heads and bodies. Mm-hmm. The state of Hawaii, the legislation is passing, they want to get warning labels put on cell phones for brain cancer, and Maine is trying to get a Wireless Protection Act passed for children. So this is very, very a very, very big issue, and it encompasses a lot of wireless. And we need to take care of our bodies, and our kids are going to be damaged from this stuff if we don't start being concerned about this stuff.
I'm gonna build to this question, but one of the things I heard is you had mentioned that this can actually even affect concrete.
Yes, I've been on conference calls, and anybody can look this up as well. Curtis Bennett, he is the thermoguy.com, and he owns a environmental firm out of California, but he's been testifying in Canada for their Safety Code 6, and this is the same as the FCC, and he's also testified here in the States. But he said that these meters, with the mesh networks, because your meter's chattering with your neighbor's meter and so on and so forth. And then it goes on to a collector meter, and it goes on to the utilities. Well, I want people to understand one meter can emit up to 5 miles, and a collector meter, and in Fort Collins, these are mostly on our arterial streets, these can transmit up to 125 square miles. So this blankets our neighborhoods in radiation. But what Curtis told me on the phone is he said these things, with the mesh networks chattering all over the place, it creates 1.8 billion pulses per second in our environment. And what this does is, and because this is pulse radiation, which is actually much harder on your body will try to recover after every pulse. But because of these pulses, it causes molecular earthquakes. And this can actually damage the very concrete foundations of our homes and our building materials. He's very, very concerned about museums and especially nuclear plants. So we need to get this message out to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of a scary situation when you have something in your house. Okay, here's an idea. What about like people that are in apartment buildings? I mean, how are they getting bombarded now by, let's say you have a 4-plex or an 8-plex or multiplex? How are those people being affected by multiple smart meters?
Well, that's what we're trying to address. A lot of these people, if you live in an apartment building where you have a bank of these on the sides of your apartments, there's absolutely no doubt about it that you are exceeding the FCC guidelines if you live inside the apartments that are next to these. And so it's very, very dangerous. We've just got to get it stopped, and it's just getting the public to understand what's really going on here.
Well, one of the things I noticed that when we buy things at the stores, they usually have a UL, and I can't think of what that means right now, but it's basically a laboratory that tests and said, okay, this is approved. Those smart meters don't have that on there, do they?
No, Underwriter Laboratories.
That's right.
And that's usually what all of your appliances and lamps, all this stuff will have this type of certification. And these smart meters are not UL certified, and they are causing fires, hundreds of fires, actually thousands of fires. Pico Energy out of, I believe it was Philadelphia, stopped the deployments on these because they had dozens of home and business fires. And then what people are finding out afterwards is that your insurance may not cover the damages of this. So, and I did contact the city of Fort Collins. This was probably 2.5 years ago, and they are certified by the ANSI. And if you look that up, it has nothing to do with safety. And their response to me back was, well, it's up to everybody with an individual policy to check to see what their coverage is. But the thing is they've come in and they've slapped these on our homes, and then they've left town, and the public has no idea what they've been exposed to here.
I have before I forget, I just looked it up. It said that this company has been around since 1894 and maintains offices in 46 countries. So they're not just only here. And, UL is a safety consulting and certification company. So if they're in 46 countries, now has the government ever tried to come to them and say, hey, can you guys get this certified?
I'm not real sure what has gone on. I know that if anybody's paying attention with this UN Agenda 21, there's UNEP, and it's United Nations Environmental Program, and a lot of our utilities are under this. And what they do is they do everything through consensus now. So you'll have somebody that wants the highest standard and somebody wants the lowest standards, and they go with the middle road. So that's what's basically happened with these meters. And I just don't, I'm not real sure. I do know that in June, the UK banned these meters. The end of August, Germany stopped and have banned these meters. And 57 cities and counties in California have either banned them or actually criminalized them. So we need to get on the ball here in Wyoming and Colorado and get these off of our homes.
Yeah, it just seems like so often we have people that are in our government that are so eager to put their hand out and take any money that the federal government is giving them instead of being willing to use what they have with the people. And I think the biggest thing is when they get tied up with the federal government, they quit listening to the people when people know and understand, because you've looked at this for years, you understand. And so when the federal government says, well, I'll give you money, well, then all common sense goes out the door or the window, and they basically just take the money because, hey, there's got to be a way of themselves. Don't some of these people in the government get themselves padded by the federal government when they try to come in and throw these things on and do different things like they're trying to do here in Cheyenne?
That's absolutely what they're up to. For instance, Fort Collins took an $18 million federal grant, and then they also borrowed $15 million and put the citizens in Fort Collins in debt for the first time in 75 years to put these on our homes. So, yeah, it's all about money. They're after the grant money, but as you know, this is what's actually bringing our country down because our cities and our counties, they're just absolutely hooked on this federal grant money.
Well, then I guess it's true where it says that love of money is all the root of all evils.
Yes.
Huh. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, here's a question I want to ask. I was at work today, and I had to write this down because I got to thinking, okay, if these smart meters are doing all this stuff, because we've been hearing about being attacked by another country, like, a high impulse EMP above our country, what if all these meters going at the same time, they haven't been tested by UL and different safety measures, and they're all beaming out? And what doesn't say that these could cause actually its own EMP and actually destroy the whole infrastructure because it's not safe?
It's not safe. It's not reliable. That's what everybody needs to understand as well. And this definitely can happen. And people, just so you know, if you're home and you leave home and the people can drive by your homes with a simple laptop device to read if your meter's chattering or not. And if it's not, then, if they drive by a couple of days in a row, they're going to know you're not home. So it can lead to break-ins as well.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, I think you mentioned that in the beginning, the county, they have a higher power outage they're pushing out than they are in the city.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. And I haven't really had that confirmed, but that is what everybody's suspecting, that if you live out in the county because your homes are further apart, they're actually turning the power up on these. So if you think you're living out in the county and it's rural and you're just not living in a neighborhood with a ton of these, absolutely you're being pulsed.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah. It's just really interesting with these meters because I remember the old dial, and I think in school they taught us how to read the old dials, and that was years ago. But now you look at it, and these little things are popping up, and like, I don't know what it's doing. I have no idea how many kilowatts hours. I mean, who knows? I mean, the company, the utility company, could be charging me 3 times as much, and I wouldn't know because, hey, it's not telling me nothing.
Well, the thing is people, what they start doing with these now, we haven't gone to this yet. It's called TOU pricing, time of use pricing. Mm-hmm. And what they are planning on doing is a certain time, like 2 p.m. in the afternoon until, 6 to 8 o'clock at night, you will be charged the highest rates. So, of course, everybody knows that's what time you come home in the evenings and you want to cook your dinners and do your laundry and that type of thing. And it's just, the whole thing is it's just ridiculous. I think this is what's going to finally wake people up. There was a gentleman in Canada who owned a 1,200 square foot house and was getting it was $1,000 a month electric bills regularly. So this is what's going to happen if we go to this time of use rates. And they actually are very, very accurate in figuring what you use, but it's almost too accurate. And there's been a lot of billing mistakes with them too.
Yeah, somebody here at work from Wellington was we were talking about some stuff like this, and they said, it's interesting. My bill, they were kind of explaining to me that was showing me. They said they were showing them how they were comparing to their neighbors, and I said, "What do you mean?" And so they pulled it up on the internet, and there was a bar graph, and it was showing, hey, you're using more. Now it didn't say that, but if you look at the graph, you're like, well, I'm using more than my neighbor next to me. You might make you kind of feel like, well, maybe I need to use less. But it was interesting for me. It's like, well, we're comparing you to your neighbor, and your neighbor's using less. Maybe you need to kind of get more in line with your neighbor.
Well, for instance, Fort Collins actually sends out letters every month to tell you how where you're in line with your neighbors, and it's so deceptive. I mean, my husband and I live in a home, and I've got neighbors that live by themselves, and some people have 4 or 5 kids, and this is actually to shame you into thinking you use too much energy. And this is all planned because these meters on the sides of your homes, you will eventually be able to read them and know what your neighbor's using. And I think they use this. This is all part of this UN stuff. They want you to be able to tell on your neighbors, that type of thing. So and shame them into because they're using too much energy.
I don't like that at all. I think people need to have freedom. I believe that they have to have their private rights. I believe that if somebody wants to play with the water, I think it's their right, as let their kids go out and play in the water and stand, you can't have this. I think, if somebody wants to use electricity, well, here I am, I'm doing a radio show. I got a couple computers going and different things like that. I think it's people's rights to do the thing. And, people need, the government needs to serve the people, not be telling the people, because it's the government that's getting in there. We're seeing it all the time, more and more intrusion of government.
Well, if anybody's paying attention, in Bluff, Utah, they're building a $2 billion data center. And this is where a lot of our data is going to be flowing through. And these meters will be able to tell who's at home, when they're at home, what appliance they're using, when they're using their appliance. They will be able to tell if your kids are home alone. And also the new smart televisions have cameras in them. And for instance, if you're sitting on the sofa and you and your husband or you and your boyfriend get into a fight, they will actually be able to flash counseling sessions across the screen to you. And then these new smart appliances, this is also another issue because they emit large emissions of RF energy into your home, which is damaging. But they also collect very, very detailed data. They will be able to tell, I've heard they're putting chips in our food, and they will be able to tell if you're getting low on your milk, your refrigerator will be able to tell you that you're getting low on milk. And so they're going to know what you're buying. And if you open and close your refrigerator door too often or your microwave door too often, you will be considered living an unhealthy lifestyle. And insurance companies are first in line for this information. And if you are categorized in this as living an unhealthy lifestyle, then they will charge you accordingly.
It just all comes down to the money. And
right.
That's just sad because, well, I mean, going back to the rights, but people have rights, and they're taking rights away. But at the same time, people are not willing to stand up because they want to, well, watch their games, whatever they want to do. And I'll be honest with you, freedom does take time. I'm beginning to see that more and more, working, with some people here in the government. Freedom does take time, but if it's worth it for you to have freedom and also for future people to have freedom, it's worth your time to help those people out now, because I can't remember who said it, and I want to say it's somebody from I think it was the founders of the Salvation Army. They said, to change your future, you have to trouble the present.
Right. Well, these things are actually a violation of the Fourth Amendment of the United States, Constitution. So we need to get groups of people organized, and we need to get out there and fight. And I've met so many people that I don't think they truly believe how dangerous that this radiation is from these. And one home can emit between 5,000 and 190,000 pulses per day, per household, per meter, and the human body will try to recover after every pulse. So, and this is what my fear is. I don't want people to become so sick and fatigued from this stuff that they can't stand up and fight.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Does it, when it makes people sick like this, people just have a tendency of they can't fight. Do you think that's kind of a view of their side to weaken people so that they don't resist?
I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that is exactly what is going on here. And if anything, we've got to stand up and get out. And I've done this for 2 years. I passed out flyers all over Fort Collins. This was probably 2.5 years ago, and I stood and talked to people, and I actually came home one night, and I got a phone call from a lady, and she told me that I was a liar and everything else. So I was so upset. I said, well, just do your own research. I mean, don't believe anybody. Just do your research. And anyway, come to find out, these people were calling the city, and the city was actually lying to them. But the movie will actually go into this, the Take Back Your Power movie, and it's a fabulous movie. It's an hour and 40 minutes long, but they address the lack of UL certification. It has all of these experts that have been fighting the wireless industry, and how everything that the industry, people have to understand, everything that says there's no harm, it's all of the industry's doing. It's all of their studies and reports that are coming out. And the ones that are finding harm, these people are not getting any kind of funding. So they're actually coming out and, and maybe losing their own jobs. They're standing up to tell you people how dangerous this stuff is.
Is there any utility companies here in the U.S. that are fighting and standing up on behalf of the people? I actually heard, and I haven't confirmed this either, but I heard the governor of Indiana wants to get off the grid completely. So this is fabulous. And I do know that there's lawsuits going on. In Maine, probably 3 weeks ago, I got all the legal briefs that the utilities were caught lying, and these meters are emitting a lot worse and a lot more than what they were telling their customers. So I think it's going to come about. It's just going to take some time. And I know that there was a lawsuit that was settled, probably a month or so ago out of California. There was a gentleman that was killed in his home because his home burned down because of the meter. So his family, it was settled out of court, so nobody knows I'm sure it was in the millions. So, we just have to tell people how dangerous these are and protect our kids. How is the best way for somebody to actually go and tell them about it? Because if you come directly at them, it's kind of like blindsided. How do you go and approach somebody so that they kind of get an idea instead of just being a full-blown onslaught?
Well, I have actually teamed up with some really good friends here in town, and we're trying to get the message out. I actually have, I was talking to you on the phone earlier, Josh Hart, the head of Stop Smart Meters, and Ellie Marks, who they live in California. They're going to be staying at my home the end of March. So we're going to try and get the movie out in Fort Collins. And, you know, you just have to approach people gently, because a lot of people don't want to believe it, and they don't want to believe that the government would do something that would harm them. But I'm telling you, Curtis Bennett said, not only will this harm you, this will kill you, and it will kill your children. So, yes, it's very, very scary.
Virginia, have you personally yourself been threatened by authorities or those in a utility area or whatever? Have you been threatened at all?
Well, I've been sending in letters for probably 2 years now, before anybody even knew we were getting these. And I sent letters into the utilities with an opt-out. Now, Fort Collins has it in their city code that we could opt out of this program, but they charge you $11 a month. And so anyway, I at this point I was willing to pay the $11 a month. But what happened just before Thanksgiving, the utility sent a lot of the people in town here certified letters saying that they were going to shut our power off on December 2nd. Well, we did find an attorney that stopped it. He wrote a letter into the city, and he stopped it. But then they started hammering us again. We've had neighborhood services calling, and then we all received another letter. And then what happened is a lot of people had, somebody within the city had uniformed armed police officers escorting utility workers to people's homes and threatening them to get the meters put on, and a lot of people caved at that point. So after that, I received another letter saying my utilities were going to be turned off on February 14th. So I did find a really good letter I sent in, and I still have my utilities, and I'm not sure. I'm just kind of on pins and needles. I'm not sure what's going to happen after this.
Well, definitely be thinking about and praying for you that things will work out for you, that we'll have, that this will just blow over and they'll just won't work, they'll leave you alone.
Right.
We have a gentleman here. I'm going to have him on here in the near future. I'll just name his first name is Eric. And he had the same problem where I believe it was the sheriff deputies went out with the utility worker to install this because he didn't want it on, and I haven't got the whole story on it, but it seems to me, from what I recall, is it really affects his wife's health quite a bit. Well,
there's I've met a lot of people. There's a gal in Texas that I know that had a very severe brain injury, and she was told, 5 or 6 years ago that she had to avoid all this stuff. She couldn't even have a microwave oven in her house. So this is the stuff it's very, very dangerous. And to let everybody know, too, there was a gentleman in California. Now, he's in the movie Take Back Your Power, but it doesn't go into this detail, but he actually opted out, and his neighbor's smart meter set his pacemaker off 5 different times, and he ended up in the hospital 5 different times. And this will happen to anybody with medical equipment like deep brain stimulators or insulin pumps. And the other thing that people need to understand is with the utilities, they can shut your power off at any time. And they will do this when they think that we're all using too much energy. And this happened 3 weeks ago in Alabama. They turned everybody's power off in the middle of the night. Well, people were calling utilities the next morning and wanted their heat back on, and they said, no, we're using too much energy, so it wasn't going to be turned on for another 24 hours. They told their residents that if they or their family members were cold, they needed to go to the town centers to warming stations. And so when I heard that, it just gave me chills, Barry. I mean, it just, this is, we need to get this stopped.
whatever happened to we the people, the government serving us? That just sounds like pure communism.
Right. Well, I found out, the media was completely controlled when I was in San Diego, because I found out what was on that cell tower. And what was on that cell tower was all of San Diego spa war agencies, all the government NITRD, NITRD agencies, and it was a backbone node to the UC San Diego Supercomputer Center. Mm-hmm. And so it's very, very dangerous. And all of this whole grid is connected to the Stanford University VLF Research Group. And if you guys type that in, it's HARP. So I actually refer to that cell tower as a Gwynn HARP tower. And if you look up Gwynn, it stands for Ground Wave Emergency Network. And the room in the building where everybody became ill with brain cancer was the bottom first floor.
Yeah, I've been hearing about the Gwynn Towers. I still don't know a whole lot about them, but I've been hearing, just about how they can really affect the people. And now, can these be any towers that we see, or are they specific towers we can see? And it's okay, there's a tower right there.
Well, if anybody's concerned about cell towers, you can get on www.antennasearch.com, and that will give you a good insight as to what you're being exposed to. And by the way, I've heard this from some of these experts. These cell towers, every time you get a cell phone that goes from a 3G to a 4G and so forth, that actually has doubled the strength of the cell towers. And then with these utility meters, now they've actually added more to them as well. But you can get on this antennasearch.com site and find out. I knew I was into something big. There was a couple of instances that I knew that I was into something really, really big. But this cell tower did not show up on the antennasearch.com. So that's how I knew it was something worse than I could imagine.
So as you investigate, do you keep finding that the rabbit hole keeps going deeper and deeper?
Yes, very much so. I actually investigated 2 other cancer clusters, and they were all in San Diego, unfortunately. And one was at the UC San Diego campus, and involved 8 women, 15 altogether, but 8 women with breast cancer, and their room was adjacent to an elevator, which behind the elevator housed all of the electrical equipment for the building. And they actually had protests on campus in 2009. And the lady who wrote the report for that worked for the Electrical Power Research Institute, and she's actually traveling the country right now telling everybody how safe these meters are. And so a lot of people have her information. And then there was a cancer cluster at Kelly Elementary School in Carlsbad, where a lot of kids had come down with leukemias and brain tumors. And I had a gentleman that's an EMF expert, and he lived in the area. He said he drove by, and there were huge high-tension electrical power lines that went across the school property and the nearby residential areas. But the more interesting thing that we found out was within a 4-mile radius of this school, there were 59 cell towers and 219 antennas. So if everybody wants to know why these cancer rates are so high, this may answer it.
Yeah, I'm actually on that website now, Antenna Search. I'm going to kind of go, as we're talking, I'm going to search my street address. I mean, I think we have a microwave tower north of us, but I don't know where we have any cell towers real close. With our cell phones now getting more what they call smart, I still have a dumb phone. These people that have these smartphones, are they no different? Are they kind of like in a way, like these smart meters in a way?
Well, like I said, every time they go up, when they introduced 4G, for instance, this doubled the strength of all of our cell towers, because you were just getting a wave, and now you're getting a wave plus a data wave on top of it. Mm-hmm. I don't own a cell phone. I will never own another cell phone. There is life without one. I know that people, they said the average person looks at their cell phone 100 times a day now. And I don't know what everybody does in their spare time, but anybody that does something 100 times a day, I'd say that's an addiction. So, and yeah, this stuff, Wi-Fi is very dangerous. Cindy Sage has a fabulous report. It's called the 2012 Bioinitiative Report, and if you guys want to look that up online, this will tell you everything that's going on, and these people are feverishly working to get these meters stopped.
Yeah. Now, I heard that the Wi-Fi, like, for the internet, actually can keep people from sleeping, too.
Right. Yes. And your kids. I talked to a medical writer out of San Diego that we're really close to a gentleman on the World Health Organization board. This is one of their symptoms that they are very, very concerned with. Is one of the biggest ones is depression. So these kids are going into school. They're probably carrying cell phones near their bodies or near their heads, and then they're going into the school and they're sitting in Wi-Fi all day, and this stuff is very, very damaging. And then they go to the doctors. The doctors aren't aware of anything, and so they're putting them on antidepressants. And just to let you know, too, the AAEM, the American Academy of Environmental Medicine, says the evidence is irrefutable now that these meters are causing health concerns.
Now, people can opt for different meters, but there was one that you mentioned that produces like a dirty electricity.
Yes, Fort Collins, and I found out some more information on that too. Fort Collins, they offered you 3 different choices. The first 2 were wireless. The third, and this is what everybody needs to remember, they tell you it's a digital analog meter. So they will try and tell you that these things, they don't emit the radiation, they're safe. But what they do is just like the pulses that the wireless ones emit, you're getting that same spiking throughout the wiring in your home, and that can make you very ill too. Plus, if you get one of those on your home, they can actually take the face of them off and turn them into a smart meter instantly. So I have locked my meter. It's posted. I've sent it in certified letters, and I'm just protecting my analog meter.
When you mention about going for the electrical wiring, that to me speaks as an antenna. And working in radio, one of the things I know that the longer antenna you have out there, the more you can pick up FM and AM, such and such radio stations. So if you actually put that pulse into your wiring, you have, thousands of feet of wiring that's going all around your house now. That's just amplifying it right into you even more so.
Well, they have what's called a power mode switching supply, and you can, if you do your research on that, this is what it does. It's just putting these spikes. Usually your analog meter just keeps things steady throughout your wiring, and this stuff is it does the pulsing. It's just a different way. It puts it throughout your home, and so, like I said, there is nothing safe but your old analog wheel meter. So if anybody doesn't have one of these, I would fight to get it off, and if you don't have one, I'd lock your analog meter up and send in a letter and absolutely refuse to get one of these.
Now, how do you lock up a meter? I mean, do you build something? Do you buy something? Or?
Well, you can get on some websites. There's several, stopsmartmeters.org, stopthecrime.net, Refuse Smart Meters, and you can actually buy cages for them, and a lot of people in California have done that. And mine just has a place where I've locked it, and I just really keep a close eye on it. And but I know girls that have been arrested out of Illinois trying to keep these off of their homes, and they're in the movie too. So it like I said, it's a fabulous movie. This stuff will get you up to date with what's really going on.
Now, what does utility companies say when they have, well, this is our smart meter, this is our jurisdiction, kind of like an easement or something like that? I mean, what do people say? I mean, how do they get around that?
Well, they do have easements, but it is to come and work on their equipment and everything else. But But there's actually lawsuits against this, because where does their easement end and where yours begins as a homeowner? And this is the other thing I needed to tell everybody is Fort Collins, for instance, they hired a company called Corix, Corix, and this is happening all over the country. And these men that are coming into town, they actually will come into a town and they'll get these put on your homes within a few days, and then they're out of town. And so this is how they're doing it around the country. But these guys have very, very little training. They have just a couple of hours training. They're not a certified electrician, which they should be, to put these on our homes. And so this is what's causing some of the problems too, with the fires and the sparking issues too.
So it's improperly set up then too.
Yes, it's all been set up, but this is what's going on around the country. And like I said, they come into your town, they slap them on as quick as they can, and they leave. And then it's hard to fight the issue afterwards, because I've heard once you get one of these on your home, it's almost impossible to get them off. But I have heard of a few people that have repurchased an analog meter, and you can do this too over some of these websites, and have a certified electrician put it back on your home. Now, I'm not telling people to do that, but I have heard of this.
Well, it's the old saying, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Right.
Yeah. So that all being said, as we're winding down here in the next 10 minutes, with these smart meters, how should I say it? How can the people protect themselves? How can they get a hold of other people? Because I believe that Deborah Torres, she understands. Tavares, yes. Is there a specific website that has like you and everybody else that they can kind of go on there and go to different links?
Deborah Tavares has a fabulous link, and it's called stopthecrime.net. And I'll tell you, if you guys need to contact her in any way, she can give you information, or she will find it for you. And she is just wonderful, and she's working so hard. She's being interviewed across the country. I mean, she's been on Alex Jones and here at 1360 AM in Johnstown, Colorado. And like I said, you just need to do your homework and try and keep these off of your homes. And if not, make some flyers. Deborah actually sells some of these on her website, and pass these out to your neighbors. And I'm telling you people this because I have this stuff firsthand, and I'm hearing it firsthand by all these experts. And so these are very, very dangerous.
Are you finding out more people are waking up to the fact of what is going on?
Yes, it's real spotty. I mean, we're finding more and more groups that are starting to help and starting to fight with us. It's just real hard, you know. I haven't quite figured out what's going on with a lot of these people, but I think people are just so busy in their daily lives, and I am too. But I've been through this. I know what it does to you, and it killed my son. And I'll tell you what, I pretty much have. I've dedicated my life to this because I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
Do you think that if they keep pushing the issues in Fort Collins, or do you think you might move away out in the county or somewhere else where they don't have them or something like that? Or do you think you'll just stay there and just fight all the way? What do you think?
Well, I'm planning on staying and fighting. I want people to wake up to this stuff around here, and I want people to help and join in with me. We've talked about moving, but where are you going to go?
Sure.
And then bottom line, my family's here. So, my extended family and stuff. So it's just a hard decision to make. Moving out in the country isn't something that we're all going to be exposed to. It doesn't matter if you live out in the country or not. So the biggest issue is just getting people out to walk their neighborhoods and tell people to get this message out. If you can listen to this program again, or I'm willing to get on other programs. It's whatever it takes to get these off of our homes.
Now this is going 180-degree difference, but maybe you can answer this question. When we were looking at moving out in the county, we came across a house that was totally off the grid, and they had 3 wind turbines on there. And of course, they were annoying when you heard them, but they would power the house for a couple days on batteries and stuff. We decided against the house and stuff. Anyways, we found out later that the daughter actually had thyroid cancer. Is there any known causes through windmills? Through
very interesting you brought that up, because I haven't had anybody ask me that. I actually talked to Dr. Sam Milham. He's all over the country testifying against these meters. He said windmill farms, these windmills are making people sick. I think you can actually find links to this in Europe as well, where they're making, even on their farms, they're making people sick. And then these electric cars, I don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but electric car batteries. There's another book that's coming out, Katie Singer. It's called The Electronic Silent Spring, and it's not even out. I'm going to be in Denver for a book launch. My son's story is going to be in this book, but the former head of the Microsoft Canada has endorsed this book. But this book will go into simple terms how this stuff damages you. And she actually told me the other day on the phone that electric car batteries will set off pacemakers and things like that too. And you do not want to sit your child anywhere near an electric car battery.
Interesting. I often find out the questions that are not asked are often the ones that are most important.
Right. That's exactly right.
Okay. I have to ask this question. Where do you see God fitting in this whole situation? Because we have to give people hope. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, but what can you give people in hope with God?
I pray every day. And it's pretty much, I just figure it's in God's hands. And this is too big, I'm only one person. When I first started this whole thing, I had when my son became sick, when he was in San Diego, I asked the neurosurgeon, I said, what caused this? And he told me his cell phone. So I didn't even find the articles about the brain cancer cluster until 10 months after he died. And I just had pretty much given this and put it in God's hands. And people need to start paying attention and going to a church that is teaching the right word, and pray. And in between praying, help fight with this.
Yeah, I definitely want to put that in there, because I know we're running into a place where people are going to get really hopeless, and they need, after a talk like this, especially if they have never heard this before, it's going to make them scared, and it can really, we see even all kinds of stuff, even beyond this, what we're talking about, that, if it wasn't literally for God, Jesus Christ in our life, we would literally probably go berserk. I mean, I can sleep at night and have a comfortable rest. But as people find this stuff out, they're going to find out that, hey, they have no hope, and, they've looked at maybe life and stuff. But I know that, having this...
Well, I look at it this way. I think that God led me to all this for a purpose. And I hope that people listen to this and do not allow this to happen to your children. And it's going to take moms going to schools and saying, hey, I don't want cell towers on my child's school. I don't want Wi-Fi in my child's school. I don't want laptop computers for my kids. I want everything plugged in and have it a cell phone free zone, and then to get rid of these meters, because we are going to lose bees in our environment and birds. And I'm telling you, if we lose that, we lose our food. And I don't mean to scare people, but I hope it gives them empowerment to go out and stand up and start telling other people, so that they can run with this issue and help me fight this as well, and with all these other people around the country that are fighting so hard.
Virginia, any final thoughts you'd like to share with the people out there, websites or anything that you have, a blog or anything else you'd like to share?
I really don't have a blog.
Okay.
I had never ever had gotten onto a computer until 2008, when I started looking up brain cancers. And so I don't really do a blog. I've got an email address. It's Farv, F-A-R-V, at hotmail.com if anybody has any questions or like I said, I don't mean to scare people, but this is kind of a scary issue. But I do think that, if we all stand together, we can get this stuff stopped.